So first of all, welcome everybody. Lisa from India. We got Michelle and Bahar and Tejal from US. I've got Avinash and myself here from England, and Ramki is visiting India at the moment. So Ramki is part of our product team together here. We will be demoing. So Avinash is going to take over the system, walk us through the demo. Any question, please feel free to stop. The whole session is recorded, and I'll be sharing the session recording towards the end. Yeah, Avinash, over to you. One minute.
Thanks, Atul. I hope everyone's able to see my screen.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
thank you so
yes.
much. So what I'll do is I'll just give a brief background of what xGEN is and what problem it will try to resolve for our potential customers. And then from then on, dig into the actual system and walk you through briefly. As Atul mentioned, just please stop me wherever you feel like you may need more clarity, because there is a set of um, screens that I usually walk through during the demos. But should you need any more information, we can go into the detail and sort of look at giving you much more information should you so wish. Okay. So without much ado, what I'm going to present to you is xGEN, which is basically a tool that we have created that helps you to resolve your data engineering and data warehousing efforts by miles. We are saying on a conservative basis that it would help you to solve your data engineering problems by as much as 60%, but that's only conservative. Depending upon the size of your data, depending upon what you want to do initially during your use case, it may be much more than 60%, right? So on the one hand, as you can see from the screen that I'm presenting, you are able to consolidate your data from multiple data sources. And currently, I think we have over 100 data sources that you could connect to, including social media information or local databases, cloud data sources, or on-prem systems as well. Existing databases can also be connected without much issues in that. Once the data has been consolidated or brought into the platform, you could do data transformation, you could create automated pipelines, you could schedule them, and it gives you a visibility of the end-to-end data pipeline. Once that is done, you are then able to, put in your data governance features. You can look at the data lineage, you can look at data profiles, you can create your own data quality, set up your own data quality rules, and you can deal with every element of your data in a very, very simple and easy way, as we will see in a few minutes. Um, the last point I'd like to mention is xGEN, as you may have heard from previous conversations, is a platform that can be implemented either on premise or on any cloud, including AWS, Azure, GCP, or Snowflake, with equal ease. So there is no difference between how this can be deployed between these public platforms. It's the same setup. It takes the same amount of time, and it entails the same benefits across the board. On the one hand, we can look at xGEN as a data repository that you can use to source your data, but there have been increasing use cases where I have been talking to customers where they would want to take all the data that has been curated in the xGEN system to external tools like large language models, LLMs, or some of them have also spoken about having their own AI models, and that data can very easily be fit into it. So think of xGEN not only as a data warehouse or a data repository, but it can function as a data collector and act as a data source to advanced analytical tools that are very prevalent now in the market, and there's an increasing use case for them. Once you have applied this data to other advanced analytic models, we could bring that data back into xGEN and do much more analytics on that as well. That's also a possibility. So what you get in the end is the easy way of in bringing your data from multiple sources, curating them within the system, making it available for advanced analytics. Not to say that you cannot do any analytics with the data within the tool itself. That's also possible, but it leads to multiple avenues at at the speed and accuracy that you require. So, like I mentioned just now, we could bring data from over 100 sources. We could sync the data, which means we could create automated data pipelines. We can use the easy to use graphical user interface to model your data, which means that you do not need an army of developers to actually write SQL code to create those data models. Another feature which I will also showcase is as you're building your data models in a graphical way, at each step, you can validate whether your joins or whether your data that's coming in, the way that you are expecting that data to behave is accurate or not. So at each step, the system will allow you to check the results, which means that your testing cycles are reduced. Once the data has been brought into the system, transformed, pushed into your required data models, you then have a full-blown feature wherein you can actually create data pipelines for end-to-end data management. You can schedule them, you can create dependencies within them, and not only that, you're also able to send emails or alerts, so to say, to a group of people who would be responsible for maintaining the data flow. Right? Once all the data has been brought into the system, transformed, and everything, you can analyze that data. There are multiple options for analysis. There is an inbuilt tool that allows you to visualize the data in its own right that comes in within the license of the system. You do not have to go to third-party tools. But we also know that there are a number of organizations who may have already been used to a number of third-party tools such as Power BI or Tableau. You have the flexibility to continue to use those, or the tool that is inbuilt into the system is eh, no less powerful than the Power BIs or Tableaus of this world. So you could utilize the inbuilt tool without a long or a need for a long training and so on and so forth. The visual analytics tool inbuilt allows collaboration. It allows reuse of the artifacts that you would create. So you can create, for instance, a small dashlet, and you can reuse that dashlets on multiple dashboards without you having to recreate it. Now, that is a feature that's quite unique in the visualization tool inbuilt into our system. Contrast that with Power BI, for instance. If I have to create, say, for instance, an inventory, um, uh, dashlet that I had created for a particular use case, I have to recreate it every time that I need to publish it in dashboards for various users. So it again, because of this reusability, it allows time saving and accuracy as well is maintained because you do not have to redefine the whole thing and remember all the filters or so there is this feature quite unique in the analysis in the inbuilt analysis tool. Then I mentioned very briefly about the governance. So you have an end-to-end data governance platform inbuilt into the system, and I'll walk you through that in detail as we move along. Right. Um, this what I'm going to do now is just walk you through some screenshots so I can enumerate the benefits within each of those areas that I'm going to cover. But we will see these live in the system in a couple of minutes, right? So again, not sounding very repetitive here. Uh, the data sync module allows you to connect to over 100 connectors out of the box, including SQL, non-SQL databases, including um, you know uh, high-end ERPs like SAP and Infor. Infor, I think, is very commonly used in manufacturing industries. We then have SAP Business One, which is again a broad-based ERP that's available on HANA and available on SQL Server. So for especially for these three ERPs, the SAP the entire stack of SAP, whether it is ECC, whether it is S4, whether it is BW, um, for all of these plus Infor and SAP B1, what we have is we've created standard what do we say, business packs that allow you to not know anything much about the system with a view to create, analytics. So, for instance, if I wanted to install procurement analytics, I do not have to start from scratch. Over the years, our experience, has helped us to curate some of those models. We have created those data models. We have created industry standard um, visualizations on those data sets. So what happens then is the moment you install that particular functional area, so to say, for instance, procurement or logistics or production planning, plant maintenance, you name it. Once you have installed it, the only thing that you need to do is to extract your data and load it into the system. Once you have done that, all the visualizations are available to you. They may not be relevant in every use case, but because these are based on industry standard KPIs, at least they give you a starter for 10, right? So that is the power of xGen. This is a snapshot of how our data modeling interface looks like. So it's a simple drag and drop. There are multiple variations that you can create your data models with. So you can start off with simple joins. For instance, you could identify one or more tables and say I want to join these tables using an inner join, a left outer join, or all sorts of join possibilities. You could even bring multiple tables or models that you have defined within xgen and create a union of them. You could create aggregation, which will help you, for instance, to push all the heavy lifting and shifting to the database. For instance, I want to aggregate on a certain timeline, or I want to count the number of sales orders and so on and so forth. So rather than pushing it to the front end, the aggregation module helps you to create or sort of push it and put all the load on the database itself. So when you run your visualizations, they are slick and they are quick, right? Um, we have also seen that when we talk about a data warehouse, we talk about Bill and Mon and the star join and all that sort of stuff. So you are able to create star joins. You are able to add dimensions and facts. You are able to add joins to them. It's a very flexible and simple way of creating an extended star model, which would otherwise have taken number of days to actually walk through what I want to join, how these should be joined, to test them, and so on and so forth. So here, with this with the interactive user interface, you just join or you just drag and drop, and the system is capable of creating the SQL code. Uh, if all of these do not suffice any use case that you may be doing, then you have the capability to write your own scripts within your data model, right, for completeness sake. There are more benefits to the data modeling interface. There are a lot more capabilities, but I would like to show that uh, in the demo as I go along. Right. This is a view of the sort of analytics that you could create with the inbuilt tool. We can, like I said, it has got its own benefits in terms of creating reusable objects, and it's got a full library of charts and other things to create them. You have a fully functional SQL editor as well if you were to uh, wish to write your own queries. This again a view of the data governance. Like I said, it features a full-blown data lineage component where you can look at where the data journey began, how did the data flow, what were the joins that were used, which field was used to do with join, and it gives you that complete data lineage and in a single view. Right? We could also do data classification, we could do data profiling, and I'll walk you through all of these features in the demo. This is the data operate, where you can create pipelines. You can schedule those pipelines to run at scheduled times. You are also able to run ad hoc chains with, ad hoc data loads without really having to run a pipeline if you so wish. You have a very detailed monitor that gives you all notifications and informations. It also allows you to start a data load from the point of failure after once the data has been corrected in the sources. Uh, Data security, again, it's purely, you know, uh, for users who get visibility to certain aspects. So you can allow users to create or just read or update your data. And I'll show you this as well. So net, so far from what we have seen, all these features incorporated within XGEN allow you to save a lot of your engineering efforts and time, vis-a-vis coding or having multiple tools that are good at doing one thing. For instance, um, this using XGEN removes the dependency on multiple highly technical you know, capable teams. You don't need them. Um, you do not need an army of coders. You do not need an army of testers. And because of all these reduction in time, there is a very high return on investment, right? So any questions so far? Because from here I'll delve into the demo itself, and we will see how all of these components interact with each other and how easy it is to use the system from scratch.
Avinash, this is very helpful, at least from my perspective. I'm wondering, as you walk through the demo, if as you're walking through the demo, if you could talk about the demo in terms of a use case, so that we get a deeper sense for how an end user with a particular
Mm,
use case, and pick whatever use case you'd like. It doesn't really matter. Something that's, people are like, okay, I get it. And
mm.
as you're going through the demo, it will help gel the idea,
Sure,
if it's
and
possible.
that's yes, of course. So, and that's what I will sort of introduce the scenario that we are trying to that I'm trying to demo on this slide. But from what I have spoken so far, is there anything that you wish to know in detail, or should those questions be parked until after the demo? Was more where I was coming from. Anything from the introduction that I may have missed and you may have a question on there?
So I know on the previous calls I had a lot of questions which were answered, but I'm sure Tejal and Michael and Uday Uncle may have other questions, so I'll leave it to them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Avinash, for kicking this off. It's really interesting. What my question is about is security. How are you guys tackling security? While collecting data, because that's one of the things that obviously it's huge in the U.S. as well as
Hmm,
in the world.
hmm. So, Tejal, to answer that, this tool can work as a SaaS product, or it can be deployed onto the customers' networks, for instance. So the security element, because it is an installable component that can sit within the user's networks, the security is as good as the network or the security that the customer has got. And once it has been installed and we have given a sort of training and all that, we will not be us as well will not have any access to the system unless the customer wishes us to give us that access. So all of these components are bundled into a Docker image, and that Docker image is the one that will get installed into the users' networks. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, it does. But so you're basically collecting data, right, from your customer. I mean, from
Mhm.
the customer is providing you the data, right, in the pipe. And that data is obviously there is, compliances that we have to keep in mind while collecting those data and processing that data in the system. So, you know, h- how is that being tackled or addressed here?
Yeah.
Because go ahead.
No, no, go on. You complete your question. Sorry.
No, no, go ahead. Um, yeah.
So we are not. So think of this XGen as a control center. So the
Hmm.
sources belong to the customer. Uh, the artifacts that xGen will create are on the customer's cloud premise. So there is nothing that UXLI or us as the product owners
I
are
see.
responsible for, right?
Okay.
So we will implement the system, we will install it within their networks, we will
Okay,
install
got
it
it.
on their cloud instance, right? So there is nothing that we are doing. The processing, the ownership of the data, everything resides with the customer
It's at that
himself.
customer end. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I
So
got
there
it.
is nothing, yeah, there is
Yeah.
nothing for us to do on a day-to-day basis unless the customer wants us to help him out, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do not keep a track of what uh, data is coming and going out, whether there were failures or whether there were. Once we have installed
Mhm.
and we have moved out of the system, we do not have any access to anything that happens within XGen after that, right?
Okay. Yep. No, that's great. Thank you.
Just to add another point there, yeah, is basically when you say when user wants, basically there is a support ticket and there is something that needs to be investigated. That time only the support team will get limited access, that also controlled by the owners of the product there, the client side. But as Avinash said, and as an example, Bahar, if you remember, it's the framework we are giving, but all the infrastructure, rest of it, data, everything, ownership remains under the client control. There's nothing goes out unless you opt for a SaaS product, which is
Hmm.
you subscribe and pay
Yeah.
as much you use, and you are okay to let your data go out of your borders, and you trust the SaaS product security. But in a particular example, if a client is installing, we are installing an instance, we're giving the image there, nothing goes out. Absolutely nothing goes out.
Got it. How is I want to actually build a little bit on Tejal's question here. So in this particular case, and I remember we were walking through this. So this is obviously a client side instance that's get installed either on their SaaS or their premise. Doesn't really matter. How is the maintenance of the software managed from there on? So you install it. It's day one. What happens day 90 when you've got a software update or a patch or what have you? How does it get installed in the non-SaaS model?
Yeah. So, Bahar, what happens is whenever there are upgrades to the system or whenever a new feature has been added or any sort of hole loophole that inadvertently passed through testing and reached, or any vulnerability that was pointed out, we will have Docker images that the user can notify the customers to say that there is an upgrade or a patch that has been released. They can do you can They can pull the image from the XGen larger repository, and once they are satisfied in let's say a sandbox environment or a development database, that's when they propagate it to the next systems. So it's not forced on the user. The user will get some sort of a notification to say upgrades and things have come around, exactly like what happens in when you're upgrading your iOS, or when Microsoft lets you know that there is an upgrade that has happened to Word or Excel.
Got it.
Exactly in the same way, you will be notified. It's up to you to then ensure that you want that package to come in.
Got it. Thank you.
Right? No problem. So everything that will happen within either the installation or in terms of upgrades and patches that will eventually be released, they will all go through as images with information to the customer, and then it's up to them or their internal teams who are capable of then bringing in those upgrades, or they can contact us and we can help them to resolve it, right? But nothing can get implemented in the system without express approval from the customer or his teams, right? Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, so the demo scenario. What we have tried to do in this scenario is to use, number one, three different um, elements from three different sources. So on the one hand, we have chosen a complex ERP such as ECC, SAP ECC. Uh, we have used a local database, Postgres, and we have used a cloud CRM, Salesforce, in the demo. Now, the reason for doing this is a very typical scenario. It may not, I mean, the ERP may not be ECC, it may be something else, and generally these are on-prem or on cloud. Now, SAP also offers you the HANA flavor on the cloud, for instance. So what I'm trying to demo within this, within this scenario is that how easy it is to combine disparate data sources, bring through the data, and combine them in a data model with a view to doing analytics. Um, in the demo scenario, again, what we are expecting to do is we are trying to simulate a customer scenario where the customer has got an ECC system which captures all his day-to-day transactions. He wants to look at the sales numbers that are coming from SAP, for example. Uh, Obviously, if it's a large enough customer, they would have a contact center where customers who have purchased products from them would be able to, excuse me, who will be able to raise any complaints or issues, and they would be calling a call center, and we would pick up some data from the call center logs and look at doing some analytics on that, on those contact center records as well. The third scenario, the third component within this scenario is the customer also has got a Salesforce system, which is capturing various opportunities and inquiries that come along from their customers. And they're trying to weave data emerging out of these three systems uh, to, sort of analyze what sort of orders am I getting from my customers, which, region is ordering more material or a certain type of material, for example. How many products have I got complaints against? Is this variance? Is there variance in the complaints by region? Is there variance by material or material group? What sort of complaints am I looking at? And obviously, I would also like to look at what opportunities have I got from new or existing customers. And all these three data reside in three different platforms. And the challenge here for the customer is how am I able to get a single view from all these disparate data sources? And that's what I'm going to walk you through the demo. Does that make sense? Does that give you the foundation of a story of what we are going to see in the demo itself?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So,
So
yes,
I was going to say just so that I'm tracking with you, what you described is obviously companies do this today, but your point is it takes a lot of time and effort to do these things, and so not all companies are benefiting from the aggregation of the data in a way that is digestible to extract insights that's going to help them run their businesses more efficiently. So what you're going to demo is a tool that makes it very easy for companies to take their disparate data and make it useful in ways very easily in ways that can help them improve their business. Am I tracking with you correctly?
absolutely, absolutely, right.
Okay,
I'll just add on a couple of more points on that one,
sure.
right? So, for example, if it's a, what do we say, a system like SAP, for instance, like just take that one single case. So now SAP is a beast in itself. There are more than 11,000, 12,000 records, tables in them. Somebody
Yep.
needs to know which table is storing my sales related data, which tables are storing my plant maintenance data, which tables are storing my production related data. To just do any analytics on the single SAP source itself requires a team of people, right? So you do require consultants from the functional backgrounds, and by that I mean who understand the business processes. You then need a team of coders, again, who are adept at ABAP, or who know extensive SQL, who know how to talk to the HANA databases, and so on and so forth. So getting data out of SAP is a challenge in itself, for example, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Even if there was no XGen, or even if there were no associated systems which hold other data sets. And this is one of the scenarios that, see, I have got almost 30 years of SAP experience, and I have not seen one SAP project uh, while I was consulting which had got a very smooth flow and that said, okay, this is the data coming out from SAP, that's my data coming out from elsewhere, and it is just as easy as to combine that data set to show me an analytical view. That was never the case, and probably that is still not the case. There's a lot of tools out there. Yes, things have changed from the time I stopped consulting, HANA being introduced, and so on and so forth. But the challenges of analytics still remains. If I were to take another example of, say, the data warehouse that SAP provides, which is the SAP BW, it's very difficult for me to take data from CRM seamlessly. Right, I have to do something, download that data from CRM, put it in a way that is acceptable to SAP, put it in the data models that are quite difficult to create and are time consuming. So there are all those sort of challenges. What we have done here is, with our experience of SAP over these
So,
years, we have
so,
already,
Vinesh, sorry
sorry.
to interrupt. Hey, Bar, Prashant here. I joined a bit late. I was in another call.
Yeah, no
Um,
worries, Prashant.
right, yeah. So I think if I take your question, and I think what you're looking for, that okay, what's the value proposition I'm going to sell to the customer? And I'll pick up on two things on top of what you said. So one is, you imagine that everybody is doing this today. The answer is, if you remember what we were talking about, yes, there are tier one companies that are doing this today. Tier two companies are still struggling to get anywhere near there, right? And
Right.
obviously there will be exception variation, so they can't do it.
Yes.
And why they're not able to do it? For two reasons. One is they find this very much technical, which means that they cannot do it. They'll have to hire consultant and see, and the tier two then start looking fine. How much of service I'm gonna
Yep.
pay? Whom gonna pay? Where do I
Exactly.
get the skill set? Right. So that's number one.
Exactly.
Right. And number two is basically the time it takes to realize that benefit out of it. So what you would see here, when you see, keep that in mind, that let's say if you were running your business and you are not Azure certified or AWS certified or GCP certified, after looking the demo, what you need to think, would you be able to use this tool and do it? Because if we can prove that, that's where the value comes in. That everybody is running a business. You do not have to be a cloud certified expert in order to get that value of the data that you're trying to get. And I think that's the cherry on the pudding of what this tool
Yep.
should provide you from a business, benefit perspective. Ignore all the technology and all those things are good, but what do I sell? That's what we want to sell. Yeah, sorry, Avinash, to interrupt.
Yeah, that's
No,
great.
no, that's
Thank you.
absolutely fine. So if that's answered then, or if you need any more.
No, no, that answered my question, and more importantly, I was tracking with you. I just wanted to make sure that as you were walking us through it, that I was tracking with you and in what you wanted us to capture. So fantastic.
Okay, thanks. So then we will move to the demo itself. So this is xGEN in action. Uh, It's a very lean interface. Think of this as a control center. So once we have installed the xGen on the client's interface, this is how uh, anyone requiring access to xGen will come in. Um, so you just need to give a username and password. Along with the system itself, there is a super admin role and a super admin user ID with a password that will be created. You're free to change the password once all the implementation has been completed. So you log in from here, and it then asks you to select a subscription. Now we could think of a subscription in multiple ways, but simply put, it would be your development box and your testing box or your regression or your production and so on and so forth. So I'll select in this system that I want to get into, and you're presented with this completely customizable page that tells you the health of your system. You know, how many sources have you connected to, what sort of connections have you got, how many data models are there, what was my data load frequency, how many data loads finished on time, how many were delayed, how many were errored. All those sort of widgets can be added onto this page. Now demo does not get used a lot, so we've refrained from putting all of them because they'd just be blank, but this is what the system is capable of showing you at a glance, right? Then we go into the the connect, and then this is where we our cloud administrators will have created the required uh, data lake and data warehouse. Once they have set that up in the backend, you can then just give those credentials, the destinations of them, where your data lake and data warehouse reside, what are their username and password, the storage keys, and so on and so forth. So once this is done, you are able to then connect to your destination. Right? What you are seeing on the screen is the data lake. Similarly, you can look at your data warehouse as well. We then get into and this is the same screen or similar screen for GCP, AWS, Azure, Snowflake, and all the rest of it. We then get into the sources of the system. Like you can see what I mentioned in the slide. We've already got three of those sources that are connected. But if you adding a source is very, very simple. So you just get into add a source, and you're presented with a screen that lists out all the possible um, sources that you can connect to. Right? You can see there is a mixed bag. There are normal SQL sources, there are non-SQL sources, there is FTP and flat files, social media, and everything else in between. Right? You also have the bigger ERPs that I spoke about. Creating a source is again quite simple. So if I click on Salesforce, for example, all I need to know is the client ID, the secret, and the refresh token, and what date do I intend to extract the data from. Once I've given this information, I just hit on validate and the system connects. So for any source, this is more or less what information we would require. If I chose another one, for instance, you will see it's again um, similar sort of information. So if I went into Postgres, which is another use case that I'm doing, each of these require slightly different, there's a port number or there may be a database name and so on and so forth. But it's a single screen that allows you to input all those parameters that are required for you to connect to your uh, backend system. There is nothing beyond this screen where you are expected to put in more information to establish connectivity. So this is again very, very simple. Come in, have your details, put those details in, validate, and your source is created. Right? As simple as that. So once we have established the sources that we require, I'll just show you the SAP source that we have created. So which system are we connecting to? Where is our host located? Which client are we trying to connect to? And then the username and password to connect to that system. So if you imagine that this is a source that I'm setting up now, and I've filled up all these details, I just go in and validate, and it will tell me that the system connection has been established. right? So we are live in our connection as far as the SAP system goes. Similarly, if we were to look at a contact center, this is a on-prem Postgres database that holds my contact center data. Again, a few parameters to set in, click on validate, and the connections should be available to us, right? So once we have set up our target and our source, what we need to then do is try and sync up the data. So we need to establish the what tables am I going to bring? What are going to be my how am I going expecting to load my data? Whether I'm doing a full load every day or whether I'm doing an incremental load. Do I want to keep history? Do I want to delete previous information before I load fresh? All of those potentials are possible. Again, data sync setup is very easy. You just select your source. So I'm selecting, say, for instance, Salesforce. Um, I just need to select my destination, whether I'm expecting this data to be stored in my data lake or my data warehouse. And, and once I have done, I give a connection name. The system proposes one, but I can change it if required. Now, what the system is doing is it's connecting live to the CRM Salesforce database. And what it will present to me is a full list of all the available tables within the Salesforce CRM. This is not the same as you do with advanced ERPs like SAP or Infor. It's a slightly different way because, um, like I said earlier, there is the number of tables that are in there are quite huge. There we do a single select, but for smaller databases, it just brings you everything. Depending upon what I want to bring in, again, I want to just bring my account data. I switch this on. I say, tell the system, how do I want to bring that data? Do I want to do a full refresh, meaning that whatever was written yesterday, overwrite it? Do I want to do a full refresh where, existing data remains as it is, but new data gets appended into the system? Do I just want to do a delta, for instance, just changes that happen between the last extraction and now? So multiple possibilities. Once I have done that, all I do is create, and it will set up my data pipeline without me having to write a single line of code, right? I go back into the sync, for instance, so and I pick up one of the CRM databases, and just to show you what happens when you have selected tables. So, for example, we have selected account history here. Out of so there's only one out of the 906 entities that are possible to be connected has been done, right? And if I went back, this play button here allows me to sync the data instantly. From this view, I can also look at all the jobs that were run for that particular instance. So you can see here that a sync had succeeded, but because of the way the job may have been set up or because there was no data in that table, the sync succeeded but did not bring any records. So you can see a whole load of information in there as to each of these data that you have set up. And similarly, you can look at your ERP systems and what data sets have been brought in. Was the data load successful? So for instance, in this data sync, we have 3 tables from SAP that were brought in. And if there were any, I mean, you are able to give any selections and you can set multiple things, whether I want to do so these are very specific to that ERP. So I'm not going to delve into that detail, but each ERP, what we have captured is for each ERP, for each system, the little nuances that are, you know, peculiar to that particular system. So SAP allows 10 things to do. So we have captured those 10 things. So the user doesn't have to worry, well, where can I do this and where can I do that? So for each of those systems, if there are any peculiar nuances that that particular system offers, that will be that has been captured into xGEN, and you are able to make those settings as you require.
Got it.
Now there's a slight variation, like I mentioned, in the case of advanced ERPs like SAP or Infor. So you can bring in data from tables or views from those systems, but also you have the capability, for instance, if I just went into the edit of that, to choose what we call as the BI extractors, which is essentially SAP's own way of um, extracting SAP information into the SAP data warehouse. But we can leverage that functionality that has already been inbuilt into the SAP system, for instance, to bring through those data. And we don't need to know what sort of name or technical name for that. Just at the on the drop down, you can get all the possible. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. We can look at all the possible options that we have and choose the option that suits us. So select the list, and I can then say, okay, I want to bring my activity attributes, and it will then connect to the SAP system and tell me that, okay, I've brought you the activity attributes. How do you want to load this data? Do you want to set up any selections? How do you want to increment the data? All that is possible. Now you can see here also one more thing is that as a non-technical person, I do not really need to worry about the primary keys and the secondary keys and the relationships any across the board. So the system automatically recognizes and proposes to you, or it actually does the job for you of picking up the relevant primary keys from the data definitions within the sources. Right? So this is how you can set up your data sync. And like I mentioned, you have the capability to just run on demand your data from anywhere. Right? Uh, One of the other things that we have seen here is all the jobs that were created for that particular system. If there is a load that has been scheduled and you want this to be done at particular points in every day, or these have got to be within the a larger batch load or some such, we can create or we can use these data pipeline these data sync objects to create what we call the data pipes. So for instance, I can say, bring me my Salesforce data, bring me my contact center data, bring me my SAP sales data, and combine it with this data, or move it to these data models, move it to those dimensions, or move it to those facts. And I want this to be run every day at uh, whatever intervals in time, and it can be set up. So every day, every hour, every week, whatever frequency you choose to, all frequencies are available for you to set up. And like I mentioned earlier, so these are some little things that we could play with. So if the data load, for instance, from Salesforce data has failed, how do I want to progress further? Do I really want to stop, or stop the entire load, which means I only want to proceed in case of success on the previous step? Or do I want to just say continue on failure? I don't care if that previous data step has failed. I just want to continue plowing through the pipeline. Both options possible. You can then set up alerts as well here. So you can say, I want to email to these n number of people if there was a failure or there was a retry. I can set up how many times do I notify before, how many times do I rerun the job before I notify. So all of these little things are all capable of being set up within the system. We can, again, we have seen some jobs, but we can look at all the scheduled jobs in a graphical way. We can look at all the jobs that were successful, where they were not successful. We can get into the details of them and look at what happened within them. That we could do through the monitor. This gives you at a glance what jobs were run and how many of them were successful and not successful. When we get into the monitor, again, very simple. So for each of the pipelines that we have scheduled, we can look at how many times was that particular pipeline run, how many times did it succeed, how many times did it fail, and what were the details. So if I click on the details, for instance, it gives me a graphical view again of how that pipeline was set up and how the data load, sort of ran through at which step um, a particular data load failed, and all this information is available to you in both the graphical and the detailed formats as well. Okay? So this is essentially how you are able to connect to a data source, how you're able to create a data sync, how you're able to connect multiple syncs in a pipeline, and how are you able to monitor the success or failure at each step with both visual and textual information. Does that give you a clear picture on how we are able to do these two or three things? Bahar, Tejan, any questions on this one?
No, no questions from my side.
No questions from my side, and I'm tracking.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, just to, if I may add a point there. So what you saw is the very first step of bringing in the data into your data warehouse. You bring the data out from various sources into your XGen world. And from here on, once the data is stepped in, that's your step one into your control center. Now, from that point on, the control center will do the next step, fast tracking the next step of dealing with that data. So most of these steps, what you saw, are kind of one-time activities.
Atul,
They're done one
Atul,
time, scheduled one time, and then they just run automatically.
Atul, I don't know if it's just my end or your end, but you're echoing a lot. So I don't know if I captured everything you were saying.
Sorry,
Apologies.
I'll go on mute because we are sat in the same room. I think my microphone is picking up. Sorry.
Okay.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. That little problem there. In a demo, there has to be something like that, little to change the tone. So, so what I'm trying to add here is whatever you saw is just the first step in the sense you connect created the connections, source and target, and you access the databases which are external to your disparate data sources. You want to bring the data, you got the connections, created those tables, and now the data is coming in, and now you have scheduled it to refresh automatically every day at every particular frequency, daily, weekly, or hourly, or even after some minutes. Now that's the mostly the heavy part of the initial configuration. Once that is done, your system is ready for further innovation. So you got your data now coming into your bucket. It's in your plate now. Now you have all the innovative power to think about what you want, how do you want to create your models, and that's the next stage. So where Avinash has come to a very appropriate point, he stopped there asking a question. Is there any question? But yeah, I just wanted to add this then. This is your initial configuration. This usually is termed as ETL or ETL tools, extract, transform, load, or extract, load, and transform. They bring in the data in your world, but now they bring it and leave it with you. Now you have to do a lot of coding and joining and a whole lot of exercising and sweating with the data to actually start bringing value out of it. Now let's see in the next part here, how do we enable bringing that value faster? Yeah, over to you. Thanks for
Right. Thanks, Kapil. So we have done the heavy lifting and shifting. So this is Bahar, where our claim of easing your data engineering efforts comes from. So this would normally take you um, a long time to set all of these up. One. Number two is there are many tools that are available to you to do just this activity. But when you start using multiple tools in, one for ingestion and one for this and one for that, you also create those sort of siloed teams who are just having enough information about one particular aspect, right? So, for example, one tool, say for instance, Fivetran or Informatica, if you were using those sort of tools to do your data ingestion, then you need a team of Informatica or Fivetran guys. You would then need another team to do the data modeling, which I'm going to show you in an instant now. So, what xGen does is it removes all that, dependency on your large technical teams. And this is, I'm not saying that this is possible to be done by any end user, but with little technical capability, with a little bit of understanding, minimal understanding, not specialized or, years of experience on that, it is easy and possible to set this up. Right. So we move on to the data modeling. Again, very simple tool, very simple to create objects in that. So before I go and show any data model that we have already created, I'd like to highlight, I'm going to create a data model in front of your eyes, number one. And number two, I'd like to highlight two distinct features on this one. So when you're creating a data model, we could create a data model that can persist the data, which means it can accept transformed data and store it in that transformed manner in tables and so on and so forth. When you're consuming the data that is coming in either from your data sync raw data or from transformed data in your data models, you can just create logical views that can fulfill your reporting requirements. So to meet these two aspects, we have created, again, there is no hard and fast rule that this is how it should be done, but we thought that it might be easier to group the logical and the actual data models in groups by function. So the data layer should ideally contains data models that will store the data, and the info layer is the one that will be a logical binder or a combination of multiple tables that you have and does not store any data, but it is reliant upon the data that was sourced either from your data sinks or from the data transform data models that you may have created. So how do we go about doing this? So if I start to create a data model, I just give a few things here. And just for the benefit of this group, I'll try to create a data model that persists data. So a view is just a logical model, and a table is one that will actually persist data. I give it a name, I give it a description, oh, I'll give it a schema. So for instance, EDW, because I'm expecting it to persist the data. I can give it some tags. So for easier searches, I decide whether I want to load the data in full or in increments every time that the data moves through the system, right? So these are just minimal settings that will have to be done. Then I will have to think about where do I want to bring my data from. So I choose my source node. So for example, I'll try to build a data model on the SAP sales data, for example. So I know from experience that my sales line items are stored in a table called VBAP. So I can then go in and bring my VBAP sales item data. I then want to connect the sales line item data with my say sales headers, which contains information like the customer name, the region, the sales office, the sales organization, and so on and so forth. So we'll be okay. Sorry, I may be using a few technical terms here, line items and headers. Uh, if we are not comfortable, please shout and I can then explain. So essentially, while I've brought that topic up, I just mentioned to you the content of the header. So the header contains the sales order number, the name of the customer who's buying it, which sales office am I giving it, where is the sales order originating from, where will I send it to, who is going to ship that information. So all that is stored in my sales order header. The sales order line item data is the actual line items within the sales order. So I'm expecting to procure A, B, and C materials. These are the quantities. This is the price. These are the discounts, if any, that are allowed. So the line item is a much more detailed um, view or the detailed content of the sales order. So what I'm trying to do here, and because the header and item are stored separately, um, I'm trying to just build a very simple view on these two, or I just want to join them. So I bring through a join mode, right? And all I'm now doing is joining these two sets, right? Um, right. Number, what do I want to join on? What I don't even know what this sales item header contains, or I don't even know the content of these tables. So I can click on them and I get a full view of each of the components that are within those tables. So I can look at the field name, I can look at the name of the source field. Now, contrasting this with this easy to use interface, like Prashant mentioned earlier, if the use case was to join these two tables, there would have to be someone who is good at coding, who knows that this is my source field, that is my table, these are the two fields that I'm expecting to join, this is how I will write my code, and he will have to actually write that code. Whereas in xgen, you don't need to know anything. You are getting every information here. You are able to look for, and this is my sales document, so I can look for material. I can just do a search, and I know that I want material, for instance, and I'm choosing my material from here. I want to choose my material group. All right, I'm checking in my material group, right? Say, for instance, I want to look at I want to include the quantity, right? So I just type in QUAN. So I can then say that's my order quantity. That's the quantity that, I mean, these both are same, but for different reasons, SAP uses them. So I'll only use the order quantity. So I'm using the quantity, and I can just go on adding if there was a price. uh, Yeah, so there is a net price. So as you can see, I don't really need to know the technical names for me to combine the objects. I can just do a search and it will tell me what I want here. For example, if there is a batch managed product, I can even bring in the batches. I I can do a whole range of things. I can bring in the material group, the descriptions, and all. Similarly, if I go to my sales header, for instance, I can look at my customer, for example. So I can then bring um, yeah. So I can bring in the net value. I can bring in my sales organization. I can bring in the division, the sales group, sales office, so on and so forth. So I can bring all of this. I can filter. So for example, I want to only bring in this data for a particular region or a country. I can then say, okay, that's my table. That's I want to add a filter in there. So for example, here I want to bring in my sales organization data, say for US or wherever. I can go and say, bring me my VKRG, which is my sales order group, sales office, and I can say equal to, and I can give it a value, right? So I can set up filters. So it does not bring me the entire tabular data. Should there be millions of rows in there, I can, if this is a model that is relevant to a particular region or a sales office, you are able to add such filters on there. You can add calculations. Should there be a need to, say, for instance, just multiply A with B or add A to B, or say, I want to change the format from DDMMYY to, you know, MMDDYY or whichever way, right? So all of those possibilities are available. Additionally, I mentioned that while you're creating your data model, there is a very good, uh, there is a very easy way of, you know, reducing the time that it takes to generate uh, the data model or validate the data model. So let me first join something here. So edit my join, and I want to. So these are all my join types. I have got all the left join, left or inner join, and all that. So I'll say, okay, join my um, on my. No, I should have chosen another field. If I go back now, see, this is another thing. So if I had forgotten the field to be checked on, I don't have to worry about going and recreating. All I can look at is I can look at my sales order number, sales document from here. Yes. And then I will bring in my sales order header and I'll bring my sales document from here. Yes. So when I join on them, I can just go to my join and I can say add a join, take my field called sales document, add it with my sales document, apply, and I've just created my first join, right? without even writing a single line of code. While I'm doing all of these things, right, the system is actually creating and modifying my SQL in the backend, right? Um, as a user, I don't need to know. It's again, the SQL is also quite unique in the way that it forms itself because we are cloud agnostic, because this same code can be used on Azure versus AWS and so on and so forth. Depending upon the data target that you have connected in the system at the start, the flavor of SQL will be relevant to that particular cloud, or the SQL that is relevant to that particular choice of cloud. There are subtle differences in there, but those subtleties are also taken care of automatically without the system, without the user actually having to think about, but does this SQL work on Azure, or do I need to change something? And this also leads to another benefit, in the sense that if you have got a change of strategy that you want to move from, say, Azure to AWS or to GCP, you do not have to recreate all these artifacts. You can just port the code, because the, the the SQL can be regenerated as soon as you have had a change of your data target, right? So that also saves immensely on the time that you have got. At each of these steps, sorry, so on each of these steps, I can look at what data I have got within each of these systems. So I can go and click on this visual tool, and it shows me. Now, if this were not available, then somebody would actually have to write this SQL query and fire it off on that database to generate this output. But here it is all in situ. Not only does it show you the raw data, but it also shows you if I'm expecting to join A with B, and I've got a set of records that I'm, which is a part of my test case. I can then see where I've joined A to B, but is the join correct? Is the output sorry about that. Did not mean to. Um, but it will come back and show you the output of those joins as well, right? I may have done something inadvertent, which is why that error came through. But you get the idea, Bahar, that at each step, whether my join is correct or not, whether so because I'm doing a unit test while I'm building the system, it eliminates a lot of effort later on to say, but do I need to go back and change that join? I don't, but that's not working. That doesn't seem to be working right. Okay, let me go back and change it. So those possibilities in a very interactive manner are possible to be done with the xGEN. Um, I can then look at, so what has happened here? I've joined two tables. I have created this join. I've sort of created an end output, which is this one basically. And I've said, what's my key? And that's a job done. So all the SQL also is quite as empty calculator fields. Okay, that's what I thought. I have done something inadvertently wrong, so I just need to delete that. And I can then go back and say, okay, now show me my SQL. So it then shows. So somebody would actually, after having spent a lot of time in analyzing these tables, not for their content, not for their data, just for understanding which field, what table, what data type, and so on and so forth, all that headaches are gone. So you see, by just simply dragging and dropping, the system is able to create this entire query, right? You are able to then use, again, like I said, this SQL flavor is relevant to the particular cloud that you are using, and it allows you to you know look at it very, very transparently. Once I have done all of these, I can then create a job. I can run the model, which means that whatever data has to come from these raw tables, which we actually extracted during our data sync, will be filled up. Any transformations that we may have done, we haven't done many transformations here, but should we have done transformations, we are able to then look at all those transformations online, in real time. So this is a view of how easy it is to code or to not code that information, and just allow the system to to generate that code automatically based on best practices and relevant to the cloud that we are connected to. Right. So I've just shown you a simple join, but like I said, other options of doing unions and aggregates and star nodes or even writing your own scripts are all possible within the system. Right? I'll show you the example of a star schema. So this is a star join that we have done. It's a multidimensional data model. As you can see, it lends itself to various data modeling techniques. So I have used two tables, to join more or less what I did a minute ago. So if that were saved, then I could, use that output to create as one of the dimensions of the star schema. I can then add multiple dimensions. I can create facts, and I can join them using a star schema. Again, all the possibilities that we saw earlier. So display of data, setting up filters, looking at the SQL codes, scheduling the data loads, and even looking at the jobs that were run, all are possible to be done from a single screen without the user having to go here, there, or anywhere. So if I just showed you this SQL, because it's a star schema, it will look, this is the entire SQL code that somebody would have had to write. You can understand
Yeah,
manually,
no, this is pretty cool. No, this is
yes.
very cool.
So this is how your data modeling is simplified. You do not need technical expertise or a group of people who are good at one thing or the other. This is
May
this is
I
very, very simple.
may I ask a question? And we can hold it till the end if it's a better time, so you can just tell me. Let's talk about it at the end.
Hmm.
So I'm tracking with you. And you're spot on. You don't need people with deep technical skills, but at the same time, it's not just any person who can use the tool.
Anybody.
There needs to be a level of skill set. Um, do you have a persona of that particular individual? What kind of skill set do they need? And again, I don't want to disrupt your flow, so we can leave it till the end of the presentation if it's better answered then.
Yeah, I think I will pass on that question either to Atul or Prashant, but I'll continue with the flow, and
Okay.
they can then
Yeah.
highlight the specifics of they can answer it in a much better way than I can.
Yeah, we
Awesome.
can touch upon this toward the end. Just
Yeah.
one thought I will leave, but I'll just at the end is, as you now see, you will need a data analyst who understands the business language, who knows where it comes from. Sorry, mute. Can
Got
you
it.
hear me? Okay, Prashant is speaking. Yeah, so just to a persona is usually the business analyst who understands the business process, business value, what business is trying to derive out of it. At the same time, they have a little knowledge about where this data is residing, where are the sources. So they get the technical details of those sources, connect with the connections. And now, because they understand the business, um, you know, dragging and dropping doesn't need a lot of logic there. You just drag and drop the tables that you need, and if you do that, it helps you to identify those possible joins. It shows you the data, shows you the field definitions, and allows you to do that. So I think the persona is the business analyst mainly, but yeah. So let us continue with this. Yeah. Go on. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Go on.
Okay, so we'll park that question. Any other question at this point, Bahar, from you
No,
or
no.
anyone else?
Tejo or anybody else?
No, no, nothing. My. I mean, you can address my question, Bahar, about the audience, right? Who's the target audience here? The, so we can address that later on. So please continue, Avinash. I'm tracking
Okay,
so far. Yeah.
sure. Thank you. So what we have done so far, we have connected the sources, we have synced the data, we have created our data models, and obviously now the next step would be to consume the information that we have so far gleaned from various systems and created all those beautiful artifacts. So then we obviously move into the analyze. So for example, the data that we have created from that data model for the demo system specifically, which brought three systems together. It brought the sales orders from SAP, it brought the opportunities from Salesforce, and it has brought the complaints from my what do we call on-prem or a standard database from Postgres. I have created a sales analysis dashboard that allows you to analyze that information. Again, very simple. So I can look at, uh, so if I go back to this one, I can look to create a new dashboard. I can create a new chart. These are the reusable objects I was mentioning earlier. So you can create a chart, save it, and reuse it as many times as you want in dashboards. Or you can go into the full-fledged SQL lab should you wish to do more analytics beyond the what is offered by the system. So going into the sales analytics, then at a glance, each of these, by the way, is a chart, and all of these multiple charts have been created or combined together to give you a good view of the dashboard. All sorts of you know capabilities are also available. So if I click on anything, it can then change the entire content of that according to what I have selected. I can look at my uh, number of complaints by material group. I'm trying to do that, and it then tells me how my complaints have moved over a particular period. Was there, uh, you know, uh, by distribution channel or by sales organizations and so on. So it allows you a full-fledged drag and drop function. It also allows you, for example, to focus on a particular dashlet. So you can look at it in full view. But additionally, it also allows you one more capability, if I can get to that. Now, okay, what it allows you to do is it allows you to build this graph, the same graph. It will allow you to analyze step by step. So you can switch everything off and then say, okay, get me my Napoli export or Becker Stuttgart or whatever, and the whole chart then starts to build on its own. Right? So you are able to do a lot more analytics on that. Is it available on anything else? Just trying to see. The other things you could do is share. So it allows you all collaborations. You can download as an Excel image, whichever to embed it into your other. So, just for the last time, just want to see if I can get that. And oh, it still doesn't allow me. Sorry about that. But there is another capability that I wanted to show, that you could build these graph as we go along. Nevertheless, so this is a very simple analyze tool. The question could be, okay, you mentioned the user personas just now, which we will be talking in a bit more length in a bit. But what you could also do is you can create roles and assign them. So for example, the super role has got everything. They are able to create, read, update, even create new users. And as far as it comes to the BI and analytics aspect, which is what we saw just now, um, you can give access based on um, the person's profile. So he can either administer the entire data set, he can create data sets and dashboards and so on and so forth, or is a pure consumer, your job logs in the organization, who is only interested in looking at dashboards and the data therein, rather than having any rights to um, create or create dashboards or even um, other things within the system. Okay. All those are possible. So this is a simple, again, if I create a role, everything again. So I'll just say what modules. So I want someone to have access to data sync, but within that, for instance, what is he capable to do? So is he able to create a data sync? Yes. Is he able to read data sync data? Yes. Is he able to update any previously created data sync objects? Yes. Is he allowed to delete? Maybe not. And I can just create a role and say, okay, that's a new role that does not allow this particular profile to delete any data sets. However, I want to give this person some BI analytics. But what sort of analytics do I want to give him? I just want him to be a viewer, nothing more. So again, in a very visual way, you are able to assign or create roles and assign them to users. Right? The user creation module is also pretty simple. So like I mentioned earlier, you get an account admin with every subscription. This is by default um, an admin that is given who has got access to everything in the system. And once the implementation is complete, then the customer can decide how many roles does he want to create, who does he want to assign the roles to. Does not have to be too complex. It's a single screen again. So if I looked at Atul's profile, for instance, all I need is the name, email ID, set up a password, and give him, uh, you know, the subscription to a particular, whether it's a developer, whether it is a development system or a test system or a productive box, and what sort of role do I want to give him. Very, very simple again. So that's, the account module. We now come to the governance aspect of it. It's up because it's never really this slow. Dum, 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 dum. Nope. Okay, for some reason this doesn't want to come up. Maybe let me try to use another one. The user. Trying to use mine. So that will allow me know how username. Sorry. Okay, maybe one more. Yeah. So set up the subscription. We're going here. Look at the command. No, it's given up here as well. Maybe some code was pushed. I'm not 100% sure, but we can look at this in another time probably. Sorry about this. Did not mean Was not meant to happen, but maybe there was a code push overnight and something has broken in the system. So essentially, this is the data governance where I was talking a lot about, um, how you are able to look at the lineage, the data profiling, and the rest of it. Yeah, okay, it comes. Okay, it did take us some time. Right. So this is essentially the data governance. So every object that was created in the XGEN, using the XGEN system is available to you. Um, and so, for example, if I were to look at my material dimension, okay, so it is taking some time. So it. Nope. Mhm. Bahar, I'm sorry about this. I may have to pass on this one and set up another one to just walk you through the data governance aspect of it. If you don't
No
mind.
worries. No worries.
Avinash, I can quickly show that.
Yeah, if you can, Ramki, will be great. I don't know, for
Yeah.
some reason it doesn't want to come here. Okay,
Yeah.
over to you, Ramki, then.
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen here.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, are you all able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So as Avinash said, this data governance, all these, are automatically created as we, create the objects. For example, you can see, there are like 28 objects for source data. So all these were created, when we say loaded the source data using the sink, right? Similarly, all the models we create again, the catalog, the schema information, all that will be automatically created. So I'll just go into, for example, this one, yeah, the material dimension, which is a model that was created. So we can see the column names and the descriptions. And then if you go to the lineage, then it will show all the objects right from the source that were used to create this particular. For example, this model, the source was SAP, and then there were two tables from where we extracted the data, and then for example, we have joined, using a star join. So all that information, is like automatically derived. Yeah. Here again, we have an option to do a quick data preview and also some, basic visualization. It's now, trying to load the data. Yeah. So here, for example, I can quickly, have like a data preview here, and also create, some basic visualization. For example, if I want to say see the distribution of distribution by say material type, I can do that. Yeah. And then there is also automatic data profiling, which is done and which we can see here. So here, for example, it shows the number of columns, how many there are missing cells. If there are any duplicate rows, it will show here. And then the size occupied by the table. And then if you go to the alerts, for example, this will give some important information. For example, if say there is a column which is very key, and we expect a value for that column in all the rows, it will tell if that is missing. For example, say EA number, it says 100%, which is as expected. But then say EA and UPC, it says there are some missing values, like 1% is missing. And then we can also do the data profiling at the column level. So again, for example, I select industry sector, it gives the distribution, and then how many distinct values are there, how many uh, percentage again of missing records and all that. So yeah, in the future version, we are also thinking of like options where users can define their own data quality rules, and then it will also then display those statistics here.
Got it.
So all this again will be available for say even the source data, all the objects basically. Yeah. And then okay, there is also another important thing here. There is also an option to say create tags and then assign them to the objects. Yeah. So for example, say this is customer dimension. So here we can say create a tag. For example, I can say that, yeah, it's sales and distribution data, but it's also master data. So we can create as many tags and then link that to the object. Similarly, we can create classifications, and then we can also create the domains. So for example, I can say, say this belongs to say sales domain, and then classification, I can say, for example, something is, like so it has say sensitive data. So once that is done, we can then classify that here.
Got it.
So if I go to sources, for example, say SAP source, now this will give the lineage for all the objects, from that source. Yeah. And then again, say if I want to understand the lineage for this particular object, I don't know whether you are able to see, it's highlighted, right? Then I can see all the flows related to that object. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's easy to, track and find out, all the lineage for that particular object. And also, it gives the overall picture as well. Yeah. Yeah. Any questions here? No.
No, not for me. I'm tracking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ramki, for saving the
Yeah.
day. I don't know what happened to my system. It's still going round and round, not coming
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it was a bit slow, but yeah, otherwise it's okay.
Yeah, okay, no problems at all. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
okay. Avinash, over to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we are towards the end of the demo itself, Bahar. The only other thing that I just wanted to highlight is once we have created all these objects, uh, we know we need to move them between subscriptions. So I have a development subscription, I have a test subscription, and a productive subscription. I don't need to recreate all these data models again and again. So we have a full-fledged object export and import function, which then means that you are able to export all objects from one subscription to another. So you are saved development time. And we quickly mentioned about the business packs. We have all those several business packs where you can click and install a business content, or all the data models and the data pipes and the data sync objects, visualizations and everything, just at the click of a button for a particular area, right? So that's, in a nutshell, um, the capability of xGen, right? So I mean that brings us to an end of that, you know um, the visual session of it. Open for our questions. We know we have one question that was sparked, um, but if there is anything more that I can help answer, I'll take them. I think there's Prashant, Atul, and others on the call who are also able to answer any of the questions that you may have. Right?
Got it. No, thank you very much, Avinash, for walking us through this. Excuse me. Um, if I can summarize what you described, and just so that at least from my perspective, wanting to make sure that I was understanding what you're wanting to take away from this is that all of the things that you are showing, certainly large companies are doing in investing a lot of money into it. The challenge is that to manage, maintain, or to create, manage, and then maintain this takes a lot of time and effort and is error prone because you have to have a lot of disparate expertise that are trying to come together to make it happen. So typically it's done by large teams with project management, so on and so forth. What xGen does is take that very complex process and simplifies it substantially so that somebody with adequate skill set can do the task of maybe 10, 15, 20 people. I'm making this up. I don't know the exact number, but what would normally take a large team and months, you can now do in a few weeks. Is that the
That's
idea? And
absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Right.
okay.
Absolutely spot on.
And the
If I add
if I
to
can just,
that,
yeah,
okay, finish it off, Bahar, and then I'll add
yeah.
few more to that one
So
pointers. Yeah.
so the other takeaway that I got was that the error checking is real time, or the data validation or the process validation or the pipeline validation is real time. So the debugging process is much shorter. So you don't have to wait to develop it and then say, oh, I made a mistake, so let me go back through my pipeline
Correct.
to see where the problem has occurred, because you are unit testing as you're going along. Is
Yeah,
that
just a small correction there, Bahar. So
Sure.
what you said is correct, but it relates to the data model creation, not to the pipeline as much.
got it? Got it. Got it. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Bahar, I would add one more in there, and
Hmm.
this when it comes to Again, because at the end of the day, all of this, what the companies are doing boils down to the cost, right?
Hmm.
Now, what you saw, and I saw Tejal's question about looks very similar to Power BI tool, and that's kind of like triggered, and I'm going to answer that question that way as well. And I'll answer Tejal the question about the Power BI comparison in a minute. But um, if you looked at it, the life cycle of the data that you manage, there were 4 or 5 things that you looked at. You looked at the data integration and continuous integration and everyday consistent integration. So integration is one part. Then what you saw in the system was once you have integrated, once you have gathered your data, how do you use the data? How do you kind of like join the data sets? How do you correlate one data from the another? Second thing. Then the third thing that you saw is orchestration in terms of dependency, in terms of pipeline, in terms of what runs first, what runs second, and how do you manage your data set? Because the data also has some dependency in terms of making sense of it. The fourth thing that you saw was the governance part of it, which is basically, how do you govern in terms of lineage and the data quality, the profiling, the one that Ramki showed. So that was the fourth thing that you saw. Then the fifth thing that you saw was the reporting and the dashboarding side of it. That's what you saw. Now, what you saw also is there was one interface where you could do all the 5 things. Now, if you take Azure, yes, there are 5 things possible, but you'll have to use, if I use a data factory for the integration, in
Hmm.
a Synapse or MS SQL server for your data modeling purpose. You will
Hmm.
have to use some sort of control M or some sort of scheduler for the pipeline scheduling.
Hmm.
Power BI you have to use for the visualization. And Azure don't even have a data governance, which is where you go to Colibra and Alessian and those kind of like areas for the data governance part of it. So
Hmm.
similarly, if you go to AWS, there are 5 different tools. If you go to GCP, you use Data Fusion, you use BigQuery, you use Looker for the tool, and so on and so forth. Which means that people have to buy those 5 components. So there
Mm-hmm.
is a licensing cost, there is a cost, and which is where I'm saying that this is a silver bullet for that tier 2 companies, because here on one license and even much cheaper than any of those one, you get all of these ones. And internally, it is kind of like structuring that and using it, because even getting the data is good, but knowing, I mean, you would hear that every day that we have data, we do report, but we don't know what is coming from where. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where, if you look at the tools like which are specialists like Colibra, the Lessians and stuff have made a huge market of it. I'm not saying xGEN is going to compete with Colibra. No, not at all. Colibra has another 500, specific features that are there. But what I'm saying is that the medium and large, not the extra largest, but medium and large don't need those 500. They need a way to manage that. Why do they need to now pay Colibra that much of money to get advantage of it? So you get that. That's another
Yeah.
aspect, is some of
Yeah.
like you get all the 5 different components which is essential for your data management available in one tool, without having to go and pick up now 20 tools and then make it work together is another challenge. And so I just want to make sure that's another kind of like key benefit or strong point to address in terms of why XGen.
Yeah. No, that's really, really good. Thank you, Prashant. So help me understand. I have a question about, you mentioned your competitor Calibra, and pardon my ignorance in this space, but if they're going after the larger enterprise accounts, right? And if you're saying that XGen is really targeting this niche, small and medium-sized companies, doesn't Calibra have a product that's catered to those small and medium-sized enterprises that they can, cut it down, from let's say 20 features to 5 features?
No, they don't, because that's where they are SaaS product, which means you buy one version of it, right? That's another issue with this whole software engineering today, that SaaS product, the problem is you get what I give you, right? You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because I manage, I do it, I force your throat of what you need to have in there. The cost, right? Because they are kind of like a bit niche in the market, because there are hardly 3, 4 companies currently who does any sensible, data governance as such, which is meant for that big enterprises. Like, you hear about data owners, data stewards, whatnot data. But as a a kind of like a medium, this organization, they want to make sure that the data is of good quality. They do not have like 5 roles of starting from CIO to CDO to how many C's in there. It's important. I'm not doing that, but I think that's the challenge that these companies are having. They want to do something. They want to have something as a best practice in the industry, but the issue is that it becomes too costly and time, and who find a lot of
Mhm.
people to do that for them.
Interesting.
And what lands up is that you don't do it. You don't do it, and then you have the problem as you go along.
So,
So I mean,
so,
yeah.
so,
Yeah,
so, how are you, is this a subscription only? How are you pricing this? I guess
yeah.
this is, yeah,
Yeah, so I think we had some discussion last time as well, last week as well, Tejal and Bahar. I think currently, you know, look, the pricing, the stuff, we need to strategize it that by market, by kind
mm,
of like stuff, because I don't believe the same thing will work, let's say, in an Asian market compared to the
yeah,
US, compared to the Europe, and so on and so forth. Now, there are
mm,
2 or 3 things, because we are kind of like, our first aim is that how can we get our, first customers, first references, first people to kind of like come into and then talk about this one. Because I can keep on talking. If my customer starts talking, that's where the product will go where it has to go.
yeah,
So we are open, and I think as we discussed last time, I do need. When we have some thoughts which we can put together and discuss. We are not rigid that look, this is my subscription based or this is something. I think as you would have heard that currently our aim is that okay, can we make this SaaS? But then I'm thinking, look, if I make it SaaS, first question they will say, okay, how do I trust my data with you, security? So we are saying, look, uh,
yeah,
to start with, let's offer that to be within the network of the people of the customer. Again, depends, because it might be some
yeah,
customer we say that look, I don't care, you not just manage for me end to end. Yes. So for now we have and we know the different components and how that price can be. I need a bit of help from you guys to say that look, in the US market, this is how best we can kind of like drive that and strategize it from a go to market perspective from pricing. And I'm open for that. I know I'm not giving you a right answer because I don't want to fix an answer and say, this way or no way. I'm open on that.
hmm and I guess and my apologies, Bahad, if I'm hogging the call here.
No, no,
um,
no, no, no worries. Prashant and I talked about pricing and then go to market strategies and
I see.
economics last
Okay,
time. So we can
okay,
certainly talk offline. But yeah, please continue with your questions. I'd rather you ask those questions. And just as background, I didn't obviously I put it in an email earlier, but just for the benefit of the team, Tejal's has been so she's a friend and a colleague and has had a tremendous amount of experience selling B2B software. And so obviously in the US. And so I value her opinion a lot, and she brings a lot to the table. So I just wanted to share that with you as a background.
yeah.
Absolutely nice to meet you, Rachel.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Prashant. So I guess what I want to understand, have you guys seen any customer successes in India or where, whichever market that you're serving at the moment?
We are currently doing a number of POC on this one, Tejal, which we also discussed last time. So we have discussed. So we have been looking at some medium, some very large enterprises. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I think a week or two ago, we are doing also a POC with the McLarens here, which is the F1 car stuff. We have done. So what we are looking at is that the first feedback that we are getting is kind of like quite promising, because they're basically, so McLaren, for example, was saying, look, we have been trying to do this for last 3 years. We couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
At least with 1 week of POC, you have shown us that we can do it. Now we want to look at it and see how that does it. But initial is, yep, we have spent 3 years and we couldn't do this. Right.
Yeah.
And they had a complex setup with like SAP and CRM, Microsoft Dynamics. So they wanted to bring those information and try to understand. Obviously they sell every car in like a £2.5 million, but still, they are still looking at whose garage is empty to give them another car, mainly in
Yeah.
Saudi. So yeah, the initial feedbacks are coming like quite promising in terms of what it is. We had done some initial consulting in terms of real business people to say we did that 1 year ago. They gave us some feedback which kind of like we incorporated in the tool. Governance was one of the key thing where they said, look, you have everything, but for governance, do I have to go now and buy another tool? Right. And why? Because I don't need everything. I need this like a tracking mechanism, an exploring mechanism of how my data are linked together. So we are in that stage, Sejal, and we are getting feedback. Obviously, then the question comes in terms of like, we want to try it out. We want to, do a pilot, see the benefit. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
when you're bringing a new product in the market, and because the another challenge that we have is that this data product market is very confusing because there are another 200 tools in the market, and might be I would be the 201.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then even the customer is trying to figure out, okay, what do I do and where do I go? Right.
Yeah.
So it's a very open market. It's a very unsettled market at this moment, but at the same time, as you know, there is a confusion as well, right? And now you can take advantage of that and clear that out and see how can we penetrate, or we kind of like be another of that confusion. I hope I'm not going there. But yeah, it's typically that's area that there are so many things. And if you would have look at it, another thing that I have said the team as well, that when Avinash or Atul were giving you the demo, we have not overused the word of AI and ML because everybody thinks if they can say AI, ML, and Gen AI, they can sell a product now. But the fundamental what we are saying is that look, you can only build a castle if your foundation is right. Right. If your foundation is not right, you can dream of whatever you want, but it will come tumbling down one day. And what this tool is going to give the organizations is a very solid foundation. After that, you can do what you want to do it. Right? How do you use the data? What do you do? You know your data best. I mean, I can't tell you or teach you how to run your business and how to run your data. But what I'm here to help you to make the foundation that you can do your next steps. And that's the motto of it, we are trying to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Rather than again, creating a lot of like I do Gen AI and
Yeah.
we are working on that as a product roadmap because we cannot be behind, right? Because we have to join the bandwagon of the world. So, for example, we are also trying to see, how can somebody go and write a text? Okay, show me the sales figure for this, there in a plain text. No, it's quite
Hmm.
easy. Today's world that you convert in the text into the language, and the system will start kind of like translating that into the technology and give you the information. Might be create your dashboards automatically based on what you want to do. Everybody loves ChatGPT nowadays, so we're also kind of like looking at how do we bring that. But as I said, like my focus is to make sure that I give you a better foundation. Those things will come on top of it.
Right.
So I know I have a call coming up here at the at the top of the hour at 9 a.m. my time. I wanted to ask two questions, and we can certainly follow up with another call. But the first question came from last time, which was you were going to share. What does the competitive landscape look like? How so we get the value proposition, we get the market segment that we're targeting.
Mhm.
Understanding the persona would be very, very important. So, who is it that is going to benefit substantially, right? So we know when we're talking to somebody or talking to a particular customer base, we are not only talking to the people who can move the needle, but also to the people who are going to do the actual work, because oftentimes even in medium-sized corporations, these are different people.
Mhm.
And then certainly, so if those two questions, we could take 5 minutes to kind of walk us through those two, that would be helpful. And if we need to schedule a separate call, I'm certainly happy to join, do a separate call for that.
Yeah, I mean, this time has worked, so I would certainly say that might be, let's see if we can have next Friday again the same call at same time, at least to kind of like, touch base on where we are and so on. But very quickly before you have to run for the other call. So value proposition we kind of like covered. I think we need to nail it down to the right way with based on the right market and so on. But let's
Yeah,
do that as we go along. Persona. I think what we're looking at here is primarily your, the business analyst. I think what Atul was saying. Now, how do we define a business analyst? So, if you have looked at the tool, it is important that somebody knows their data.
hmm
Because if I'm saying I want to join my, ERP data with my CRM data, definitely I need to know that, what is my linkages? Is that the customer ID? Is that the account ID? Is that what it is? So it's similar to, like, let's say if you bring, a bunch of data in your Excel and you have to
hmm
join them or VLOOKUP, you need to
hmm
know that one. So that's part one. Now, part two, obviously, whatever you do, I mean, it is, we can make it say it for the selling, but if you are using an IT tool, you need somebody who at least understand a bit of IT. But the advantage is here that you need might be one of them, two of them, depending upon the team that you are serving, not 20 of them. So that's the
hmm
second thing I would say that would be there. And those are kind of like my would be two key personas. Obviously,
hmm
when the reports and dashboards are created, then you have a lot of personas coming, like your, whoever is the managing people,
hmm
whoever is looking at that, because they become the consumer of that information. But in
hmm
order to create and curate the information, the data analyst and your data technical, I mean, data analyst is that word used in the
hmm
industry for that
Yeah,
persona.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the reason I was asking the question is because this seems to be, at least the way I'm understanding from you, is that this is a new way or a different way of doing things, and it changes the consumer of the product.
Hmm.
And you are XGen seems to be shifting the focus of who's consuming the product. Not at the very end, because obviously at the end you've got the dashboards that a lot of people consume, but how is it being used to get to there? What about competition, competitive
Now
landscape? And I know this was
competition,
something.
yeah. Now it's a bit. I'll send you something, Bahar, on that one. But I'll take an example. So Tejal,
Mhm,
you just pasted one of the tool called Live.
Yeah,
Now, and that is where, and why I'm taking this example, Bahar and Tejal, is that is the confusing market of this data, and why.
right, right.
If you look at
And
this Live data, it's a very nice. It will say you that, okay, it will connect to the data, this, that, and the other, but it's a point solution. It can do only for a source, and might be it is related to that supply chain, right? And if you get to this tool, yes, your supply chain part might be, this will provide you. But what about your marketing? What about your campaigning? So there are a lot of tools in the market which I think does great, right? Because it solves your, might be the supply chain end to end. It gives you that. It already has built some ready-made KPIs because they might understand the domain of that business, blah, blah, blah. So you get something, but you get only one part of the story. Where we differentiate is that, as you see, we are providing you a platform where you can bring in anything and everything together, which you can't do, for example, in this levy data. Now, the wording is also very confusing in this market. Everybody says it's a platform, but it's, you have to take it with a pinch of salt of like what it actually means. Now, if you start comparing that with like a lot of tools, and there are hundreds of these kind of stuff and good things, right? No way I'm saying that those are not good, but they do point solutions, whereas where we differentiate is we are giving you the platform. Now there are few of the products, likes of Warescape I was mentioning. So no, let me put that one, because that is also, this is something that comes close to what we are achieving, although they are now moving to cloud first and mobile, web first, but we are, from the start, cloud first. So that's our advantage, because their UI and stuff are still like, those old JavaScript and stuff, not web based. So that is one of the tool that I would say. Then another tool which I wouldn't compare it like to like, because we do have a number of other aspects of that one. Let me find that one. No, not this one. Um, but I'll send you some more on that one, Bahar. So at least we know this is another one which is more of a SaaS offering, but again, only might be 40% of the feature that we spoke about. Might be they are much better in that 40%, because that is a bit of a mature product than ours being a newer product on that one, but that covers only like a half of the spectrum that we looked at it. But yeah, these are the kind of like tools which we would compare against.
Got it. Got it. Um, I have to apologize. I have to jump on my next call. But I wanted to thank everyone and Avinash for walking us through the demo, and Tejal, Mike, for joining the call here. Really appreciate the conversation. We'd like to dig in a little bit. I'm going to talk to Tejal after the call, and then Mike as well. But I'd like to dig in a little bit more to get a sense for as you're looking at the competitive landscape as to how what would it take to be successful in the U.S. market, as we've talked about. Every one of these markets is slightly different, and if it's okay. Next Friday, I am actually traveling. Is it possible to do a call, say, next Wednesday, if it works for everybody?
That
Should be
works for
okay.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
sure.
put something on that one, and then we'll look at that. And in the meantime, Tejal, Bahar, Mike, if you have any question, just drop it, so that if there is some anything preparation we need to do, we'll bring that, and then let's have the call.
Yes,
Wednesday, same time.
Tejal, does that work for you, Mike?
that works for, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
It
fine.
works
7
for
works
me.
for me. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you could, Prashant, share what you believe is the competitive landscape. Like you said, there is a lot of confusion in the
Yeah.
market, and it would help us to focus in on how you're looking at competition. And that way, when we're thinking about this, we're coming in a constructive way to say, here is how the product can be positioned. So, certainly in the US, right? I can't speak for other markets, but certainly in the US. And both Tejal and I live in Microsoft and Amazon's backyard. We're both in Seattle. So we have a lot of friends who work for Microsoft and a lot of friends who work for Amazon. And so it gives us a very good sense for and they're I have very good conversations about these things, and
I
even
exactly know
they will yeah, and they tell you like, yeah, we've got this, but really what you want is that, and we can't invest in it or we can't do it because we have to focus on the top tier customers because we can't focus on small to medium, and so it gives us a healthy perspective of where is the what is the winning go-to-market strategy for a product like this, because every product has a home, but where is the home for something like this, so we can be effective in whatever we do, so if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Great.
I have to run because I'm really late for the other call.
No worries.
Thank you, everyone. Really
Thank you
appreciate
so
the time.
much.
And
All right.
Thanks.
Talk to you later.
Have a
Bye.
good weekend. Speak later. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.